Hey there, Brewers fans. My name is Seth Stohs of Brewer Fanatic of brewerfanatic.com, welcoming you to another interview, and this time with a Brewers minor league pitcher. Last week we talked with Alexander Cornell, the May minor league starting pitcher of the month at Brewer Fanatic. Today I'm going to bring in our star of this show, and that is Craig Yoho. He was the minor league relief pitcher of the month for May and put up some absolutely crazy numbers at Wisconsin, a 0.44 ERA, 37 strikeouts in just 20 and a third innings. He's since been promoted to AA, where he's made 2 appearances and has 9 strikeouts in 3 2/3 innings to this point. But we'll get to know him as not only a pitcher, but as hopefully a person, and appreciate any input you have. And I've been going for a minute. You don't want to hear from me. Let's bring in the star, Craig Yoho. How are you this evening, Greg?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with just kind of your month. You kind of dominated in at Wisconsin. Let me ask you this: what pitches do you throw? Mm-hmm. And when you're going good, as obviously you have been, what's really working for you?
Yeah, so I throw a four-seam fastball. It's kind of those guys call it like a runner. It's kind of run and ride, and then I throw a changeup, a slider, and a cutter.
Okay.
Then, so like most of my outings, it's primarily fastball changeup, and then I'll show the slider and cutter at times. The slider's a really good out pitch, late in counts, big moving pitch, but my bread and butter is definitely my changeup.
Okay. Is that something that's always been the case? I know you've been pitching for a while, coming out of Indiana. Have you always thrown a changeup, or is that something you've really developed maybe in the last year or two?
Yeah, last year was actually my first year pitching, so the changeup kind of developed over the course of the summer going into that year 2023. So it was me playing catch with my dad, rehabbing basically, and then we would clip up a towel on the fence, and I would just throw pitches into it until I saw one move, and then I was like, okay, that was a good adjustment, and then keep building on that, and then eventually just kind of turned into a decent pitch kind of halfway through last year, and now it's become like an elite level pitch I can go to in any count basically.
Yeah, I mean, and having those pitches, you've since been promoted to AA. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about maybe the pitching coaches, managers, and what you really gained out of that time in Wisconsin. And I know you've only been in AA now here for about a week, but, what are some of the instructions that you're getting, as far as learning to pitch? Like you said, you haven't been pitching for that long.
Yeah, so in Wisconsin, we had Josh Spence, and he's got a great mind in the pitching realm, and just talking to him about pitch sequencing, when to use this pitch, or just cues on how to throw certain pitches. He was a great help, and just really set the tone and the attitude that I needed to have on the mound, and just basically get ahead of guys, put me in good situations where I can strike guys out or get weak contact, and that basically carried me through that first half of the season, or first third of the season with Wisconsin. And then I've tried to continue that same mindset and mentality here in AA, and with Will Shearholtz and Paul Moeller here, like they also give great cues, and just kind of like, hey, like here, this pitch would work better to this hitter, and vice versa. Just basically giving us everything we need to have success, and just put us in the best situations to get basically outs. That's our job. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's go back a little ways, and even before Indiana, we grew up in Indiana, in the city of Fishers, which I looked up, kind of a northeast suburb of Indianapolis. Were you always a baseball guy, or did you, big Colts fan, or where were your sports interests as a young kid?
Yeah, so I played as a young kid, I played basically baseball, tennis, and basketball. Obviously, growing up in Indiana, everybody plays basketball, so I was basically born in the gym, I guess. But baseball was always my love, and so in high school, I just played baseball and basketball, and then basically kind of got to like my senior year, and it was I was committed to play baseball, and that was my dream. So. I was never good enough to play basketball in college. I knew that. So it's like, I'll always love to go shoot now and then, but it was never like a real dream of mine.
Yeah, gotcha. And on tennis, decent tennis player.
Decent tennis player. It's just it's a hard sport for me to play because you can't really hit your tennis racket when you get mad because it'll break. So yeah, I was decent, but I would get a little mad, so it wasn't a great sport for me.
Yeah. So you spent a couple of years in Houston. What brought you down there? You said you were a hitter at that point. What positions did you play? And how did Houston end up the right choice for you coming out of high school?
Yeah, it was just at that time they were a great program, like top 25, hosted a regional recently, and being from the north, I kind of wanted to go south to play baseball in the warm, and they had a great program with really good coaches at the time and stuff, and I went there, basically played middle infield, third base, a little bit of corner outfield, basically just anywhere you can kind of get bats in the lineup was kind of their mentality, and so. Had a decent little start to the season before I got hurt, and then kind of got hurt, and then that was the kind of the end of the story there at Houston. So,
I was going to say you a couple of bats the COVID season. Was that kind of the thing that pushed you back home? I guess home to Indiana, or were there other? I mean, I don't get into anything that's going to get you in trouble, but are there other factors as well?
Yeah. There was kind of, I guess, I don't know, mistreatment somewhat, I guess. I don't want to go too far into it at Houston, but essentially I got hurt. They took my scholarship because I got hurt. I went back just to rehab, essentially to get back in healthy. And then COVID season, they said, we don't have a spot for you after the next year without all the guys coming back. And so like, that's fine with me. I'll go elsewhere. So, and then, went to Indiana and knew a lot of the coaches that were already there and had, recruited me out of high school, and it just ended up being a good fit.
No, and obviously things turned out well, but, and sometimes I always like to say that the path to the big leagues or any prospect is certainly not a linear path, and it comes with all kinds of ups and downs. You've experienced all of those, and that 2 years after you left Houston, I know you had Tommy John and knee surgery. I don't know in which order and how that all played out, but what was it like to get back on the field and transition to the mound last year at Indiana?
Yeah, I think just the continuation of like setback after setback is what it felt like. Also kind of fed my motivation and kind of discipline to get back on the field. Like I'd always have teammates, ask me like why I'm still, trying to play. And it was just, those kind of comments just kept fueling me to play because, they basically put themselves in my shoes and could tell that they wouldn't be able to make it. And so, I didn't want to be like just an average person. I wanted to, push through and, basically write a story that, would be the craziest story you've ever heard. If you look at my story, it kind of sounds fake, which, is exactly how I want it to be. So, and then the transition to the mound was basically just, I basically have 1 year here as like a fifth year to play and try and get to the next level. If I hit really well in the Big Ten, it's like, oh, it's, probably a fluke. But if I, shove in the Big Ten, it's like, okay, there's a chance for me to get to the next level. Just kind of also give a break to my body because, it was tough being a two-way. So I just had to pick one. And, just having that competitive edge that like, man, I haven't gotten to play in so long. Like, I was hungry to play and compete, and that definitely fueled me on the mound to be the best I could possibly be.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about the draft last year, a little under a year ago. At this time last year, you were just finishing up the college career, but 8th round. What were you kind of hearing ahead of time? Obviously, as a senior and a 5th year senior, you probably didn't have a lot of leverage in terms of different things, but were you hearing anything?
Yeah, so I mean, I believe every team turned me in for the draft. Basically talked to every team. It was a wide range of, possibilities. I heard everything from, hey, like 3rd round to, sometime on the 3rd day, basically. So, it was wide range of where teams had me slotted in just because I was in basically an interesting situation with being 1 year pitching with interesting stuff. But, the injury history always throws red flags at people. And so, it basically came to the point where I was working with my pitching coach at IU as my agent for the most part. I mean, he was just basically being my guidance and like
Sure.
experience in pro ball. He was with the AAA with the Yankees pitching coach. And so, he kind of had a feel for what they like to say or what, and he basically just told me, hey, you need to get into pro ball, whatever path that is or whatever the signing bonus is, doesn't matter. Like your answer is just yes whenever a team calls. And the Brewers came calling first, and I just said yes. So,
yeah, you mentioned those types of stories like yours, and it is rare. But now, currently on your current roster at AA, you've got Shane Smith, who's got a pretty similar story. I don't know if you guys have compared notes or anything yet.
Not yet.
Okay, you'll have to do that someday. And now he's making that transition from bullpen to starter as well. So you got a few innings last year in pro ball. I don't know, did you do the instructional league or any camps in the off season?
I did the instructs.
Okay. And I just kind of keep going back to the incredible story. You've only been pitching for a little over a year. What do you even work on in your first off season? I'm sure they just loaded you up with information and said, go at it.
Basically in the off season was just refining my stuff, basically trying to get everything, because the biggest thing when you get into pitching is just throwing strikes. And so I knew I had good stuff, good pitches, unique ones, and it was just getting those in zone as much as possible. So just kind of refining my mechanics to a point where they're repeatable, and I can set myself up to throw strikes at in high clip. And so with that came just repetition and just staying after it, and not with the development of my cutter this off season, it was kind of that's somewhat of a nonlinear path too. You'll have days where it's locked in, and then the next day it's like you have no idea where it's at. So just staying at it, and nose to the grindstone, keep pounding away.
Absolutely. And not to get too deep into the whole analytics and statistical side of things, but are there certain numbers that you get either from the Brewers or you just choose to look at yourself that tell you if things are going well or areas that you need to improve? Is that a part of your game, or are you still kind of going on feel and that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the Brewers, we always do like an outing review after our games or whatever, and so we'll get kind of some stats and information about how we did, or areas we can improve, or ways we did really well that day. And so I take those and kind of compare them to my performance that day, and it's like hey, I might not have had the outing I wanted, but my whatever execution was good, I just kind of got unlucky. It's like, okay, I actually can take some good out of that, or there was an outing maybe I had quite a bit of success, but I maybe didn't do a couple of things great, but I got away with them. And it's like, okay, well, next time I need to make sure I do better at that, so I don't end up getting hurt. So there's definitely some stuff that is beneficial. We get a lot of heat maps of like where our pitches are play better at in the zone and to certain hitters. So I like to look at those just to kind of know where I can basically have my misses too, and so that way I can limit as much damage as possible.
For sure. Last couple of questions here with Craig Yoho. He's the relief pitcher right now. It's the Biloxi Shuckers. Pitched in Wisconsin during the month of May, and he was the choice for minor league relief pitcher of the month. Off to a fantastic start. 2 questions left, and I'm going to start with kind of the personal side of things. Away from the game, which is obviously something you've had time with, but even just on a day off or in your off season, what are some of your interests? What are some of the things you enjoy doing to get away from the game?
Yeah, so I in season I'll go golfing a lot with the guys here, but also like off season I'm married, and this next coming off season I'll have a baby, so that'll be exciting to basically just spend time with my wife and our little girl, and just kind of enjoy that time with them, because in the season it's kind of hit or miss on when I can get to see them and stuff. So basically just like to be around guys on the team, or my family and friends in the off season.
Okay, I saw the dad hat. I wasn't sure if that was a question I should ask or not. And then the last question: goals for the rest of the year. We're basically 2 months in. couple months, maybe 3 months more to go.
Mhm.
Are there certain things you're looking to achieve, whether it is statistical or another promotion or whatever it happens to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, I just want to be where my feet are at the, just take it one outing at a time, and whatever happens with that is out of my control. And so, I can't, hope for another promotion or whatever that my outings are my outings. And then, whatever the Brewers decide is what they decide. And basically, I just want to win as many ball games here in Biloxi as I can. And, whether I get moved up to Nashville or, the big leagues from there. And that's the goal is always to win baseball games. So, and then, my outings will dictate whatever happens after that.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's all about development, and they'll know when you're ready. And you're in a great organization that's been winning a lot of games over the years. So if you get that opportunity, it's going to be deserved and earned. So congratulations on not only a great month, but obviously a great start to your professional career. Best wishes the rest of the way this year and going forward, and on becoming a dad. That's obviously an amazing thing. So, again, thank you for doing this. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great one. And again, as always, go Brewers and go Shuckers.
Yes, sir.